He looked right at me and smiled, but he didn't know it was me. I've only met Gordon a few times before, but he's a great guy. And I want to thank everyone for listening to me over the next few minutes, and thank Gordon for inviting me here to share a bit of my story, because I can't fit the last 6 or 7 years into the next 5 minutes. I would be lying if I said that it was my pleasure to be here. One, I'm super nervous, and two, I'm standing here. The only reason I'm quite sure, the reason I'm standing here is because less than 12 months ago, I lost my son to an accidental fentanyl overdose. My son, Michael Anthony Robertson, 22 years young, was found dead in his car almost 1,000 miles away, working on his recovery in Richmond, Virginia, because we didn't have an option in Maine that didn't include a 3-week wait. Michael did not want to die, and I know this because he said those exact words to me just 3 months prior. Our last phone call, he said, "I'll talk to you tomorrow. I love you, good night." He had plans for the future. Michael's death was just one of the 107,543 reported overdose deaths in 2023. Ironically, the first of the last 5 years or more to report a decline. I don't think there's any appropriate words to say to describe how hard it is to hear or see anyone celebrating that number. Like there weren't over 107,000 lives lost, families turned upside down, mothers crying themselves to sleep every night, or new people finding themselves slipping into the grips of addiction. Because not only do we have a shortage of help for people with substance use disorder, we lack support and resources for people with mental health disorders, and every single death has a ripple effect. I could go on for a while about the barriers and struggles, lack of support, empathy, respect that I faced trying to get him help. However, I have 5 to 7 minutes, according to Gordon, and I want to instead tell you about this beautiful human that existed before the drugs took over. The one that came back to me for a couple of months here and there when he would work on his recovery. Because although the world may see him as just another addict that chose to get high, he deserves to be remembered for who he truly was. The person that those who loved him most knew. Michael was born a beautiful, seemingly healthy baby boy, and his big brown eyes showed curiosity from the moment he came into this world. I remember clearly the slow blinks and imagined him thinking, what is this new place? He certainly was taking it all in, and to me he was perfect. And at 16 years old, I never knew that I could love a human so much until that moment. He was smart, hitting all the milestones early, which reinforced the thought that he was perfectly healthy. Walking at 10 months, running shortly after. He loved the outdoors. You could always find him playing outside in the dirt or the snow with his dog, his siblings, or his friends, riding anything with a motor, taking jumps, racing around right from the toddler years, which sometimes ended us up in the ER, but never broke a bone. He loved swimming and skiing, which came effortlessly, and also had to involve dangerous stunts, like backflips. If there was a level of danger to it, it's as though he had a magnet that was attracting him to it. He had a big personality, loved to listen to tell stories, loved to listen to and tell stories, especially ones that would make you laugh. He was charming and caring, always standing up for his family and friends and the kids that got bullied in school. His heart was inherently good. Just as most individuals I meet that struggle with addiction, I would say his heart was better than mine. He cared deeper, was more accepting, less judgmental, and a much better storyteller. However, the world we live in is not as kind, and when life shows us over and over again how ugly it can be, we naturally look for an escape. Michael found his escape for the pain and anxiety through marijuana and opioids as a teenager. It wasn't until he was 19 years old he would tell me about how incredible the feeling was when he'd take his first oxy years earlier. The boy that once swore he would never do drugs, swore that the pills would never turn to heroin, laid on the couch in early stages of his opioid withdrawal and told me his secret. So there you have it. Your son's a junkie, a loser, heroin addict, and if you want to disown me, I don't blame you. He continued with, I am sorry, I'm such a disappointment. Those were really hard things to hear as his mom, and I don't recall my exact response, but I do remember finally feeling a sense of relief. He finally let me in and trusted me enough to give me a chance to help him. And the crazy thing is, I think we both had this idea that I could fix it for him. I knew for years that something was going on with Mike, often accusing, arguing, threatening, which never proved beneficial for either of us. And I do want to give credit to my changes, actually, to a book called Beyond Addiction, which talks about craft. And I truly believe that the changes that I learned and made were through reading that book twice, gave me the ability to give my son a safe space to open up to. There were no support groups. Again, I'm in northern Maine, so there's not a whole lot up there. But even if there was, I probably would have been too embarrassed to attend. After all, it's bad parents, right, that have kids on drugs? It took me a little time, but I learned that that statement is a lie. My mother would say to me, parenting didn't come with a handbook. I did the best I could with what I had and what I knew. And people in the recovery world added, and when we know better, we do better. So that's why we're all here, right? We want to do better. When Gordon asked me to talk, I wondered if he realized that he picked a poster child for an affected other. I lost a cousin, an aunt, and my father to their opioid addiction. My mother and her father identify as alcoholics. I have a sibling and many friends and a best friend still struggling with their substance use. So how do we do better so that we stop losing these beautiful souls? How about we educate younger, not wait until youth are already using drugs and alcohol to cope? How about we talk to the people doing well in their recovery and trust them instead of professionals that think everything is fixable with a new prescription? How about we have 90-day treatment instead of a 28-day reset that sends people right back into the same environment that they became sick in? How about if detox is supposed to be 7 to 10 days, we accept them on day 3 and not tell them, I'm sorry, you're not sick enough to come. Those are things that I dealt with trying to help my son. Additionally, how about we not have a 3-week wait list and treat people with care and respect when they reach out for help? How about we stop thinking about the only people that want help are the ones asking for it, because we know that there's also a huge stigma around simply asking for help, especially if you are a male. My son wanted to go to treatment in Maine, and he didn't want to go so far from his family. The first time he asked for help, we were offered an appointment 3 weeks out over 50 miles away. The first year and a half, he went through 7 different doctors, one of which wrote him a Suboxone script for a month after he showed up to his appointment completely inebriated. I never forced my son to treatment, but I pushed hard for him to take that step, and I worked hard to stick to my boundaries because trying to save him, I was killing myself. The first time and every time after he wanted to go to detox, he was told to call back tomorrow, we have no beds, or we're not doing intakes anymore, or you're not sick enough. The first time that he asked, I didn't want to miss a chance to get my son back, and I didn't want him to think that there was no help. So we kept calling until I found a place that said we have a bed. Of course, there was a catch, $7,000. So of course, I took out the credit card, and then I drove him 6 hours to his first medical detox. The facility was great. It appeared clean. The staff were professional, kind, respectful. I trusted them to guide us to the best option for inpatient, which they connected us with a well-known place out of state that cost over 3 times what the detox stay was. 3 times. People don't just sit on this kind of money waiting for a health emergency to come up. These are people's retirements, home equities, credit cards, money for their basic family needs, and these treatment centers are not a guarantee. Most of the time, individuals are going over 4 times. It didn't take me long to come to the realization that all the money in the world wasn't going to fix this problem. We need people that genuinely care, people with lived experience, people that hold themselves and those around them accountable, people that know the importance of putting their own oxygen on first. And you give these people some capital to help grow resources. I cannot bring my son back, and he doesn't get a great recovery story, but I do know that he wanted to help others. So through my pain and suffering, I did create a nonprofit in his memory and a recovery center with some friends, old friends, new friends. We are a community of recovery allies. We are affected others. We are people in recovery, and we are determined to make resources more available, to advocate for rights and acceptance of people struggling with addiction, and we refuse to stop fighting for those we love and those we lost. I should not have had to send my son to rehab almost 1,000 miles away for him to die alone in his car across the street from his recovery residence only 3 months later, and no other parent should have to either. Thank you.